Okay, so I just wanted to make a quick, very quick video on a lot of topics that have surfaced in America. Now, I know I'm trying to keep this channel non-political, but at some point I just gotta speak my mind. I can only talk about video games so much, but when things are just collapsing all around you, it's kind of hard to ignore the ginormous elephant in the room. So the first topic is student debt. So student debt is absolutely destroying this generation. Now, how can people sit and watch these young 18-year-old kids sign up for a lifetime of debt year after year? I mean, we all know it's crushing lifelong debt that nobody will be able to pay off. Nobody's going to be able, no 18-year-old is going to be able to pay off a $20,000 tuition college. Nobody, unless you're a part of the 1%. So why do we keep allowing these schools to brainwash people, go into public schools and literally recruit people to sign up for a lifelong debt? And the sad thing is, they lie. They straight up false advertise when they get you to sign up for school. They go into high schools like they did mine, and they'll literally say, oh man, it's worth it, man. You'll be making $100,000 a year. You'll get it paid off in no time. And meanwhile, the people who are peddling that garbage are in debt themselves, and they get probably some sort of tuition forgiveness by saying, or by going to colleges or high schools and lying to people. It's sad. It's sad. And they'll even like pass out credit cards trying to get people in debt. Oh man, you get $500 credit or $20,000 of credit. Man, you can spend, have the time of your life. But they don't tell you that they don't teach people what interest is. Even if you think you can pay off $20,000, you're like, okay, I'll just pay it off. I mean, anybody can pay off $20,000 eventually, but with interest, it drowns you. How in the world is there interest on education? How in the world can you put interest on education? I mean, we're the only country in the world that puts interest on education. I just think it's sad. And really, the brainwashing starts from the moment you step into a school. There's preschoolers getting brainwashed into, being a lifelong debt slave for something they can just Google in 5 minutes. A lot of college classes, they don't even give you quality education. That's not even worth $100. Like, would you, if you got the quality of education that you got at school and you weren't promised a piece of paper for it that hopefully might land you a high-paying job, would you pay for it? Would you sign up for a course like that for $2,000? And the answer is no. So it's obviously not worth it. They're just brainwashing people into thinking they'll be a lifelong McDonald's worker if they don't do it. And just lying to people and false advertising, that's their main selling point. And it's sad. Why are we allowing 18-year-olds to sign up for school for $20,000 a year And literally their parents only paid $5,000 a year, and their parents could pay it off with a summer job. It's insane. I can go on a whole video, but let's move to the next topic. It says rent in America is rising rapidly, becoming unaffordable for younger households. Obviously, this is a no-brainer. It's been rising since forever, and there's no sign of stopping it. I mean, most people aren't even able to move out of their parents' house, which is sad, which it really stops them from becoming their own person. Really, that's what it is. I mean, your parents will always be your parents, and if you're not able to get away from your parents, then you'll just never become your own person. You'll never become independent. You'll never become your own unique being, and it's ridiculous. And a lot of people are also, they're feeling that because they can't afford an apartment or a house, that they have to go to school in order to get away from their parents and become a independent person. And a lot of these people, when they graduate, they're just bogged down by debt, and they have an even less chance of moving out of their parents' home, which is sad. And their wages get garnished. They lose a huge chunk of income, which really just puts them down, which makes them have to work odd hours, 2-3 jobs, 80-hour weeks, just killing their body. And the average lifespan of Americans is going down. For the first time in human history, the lifespan is going down. So really, this just shows a downward trend in human civilization in general, because that shows that the human quality of life is not going up for the first time ever around the world. Your health care, you have to pay like millions of dollars if you just so happen to get cancer, and a lot of people are just going to say, screw it, I'm not getting treatment, and they end up dying for something that they can have a chance at preventing. It's sad how our tax money goes towards tanks and drones and all this other goofy crap, but when it comes to our own health, the people who built this country, the people who live in this country, the people who maintain this country and pay taxes, we are not valued. We'll just be replaced by another debt slave and keep the cycle going. Okay, they don't look at us like, okay, I won't get into that. Okay, let's go to the next topic, the crime rate. The crime rate in this country is just spiraling out of control as people are just working these jobs over and over again. They were looking for easy money, fast money. And of course the crime rate is going to increase. Of course people are going to be on edge. Of course that all comes with a stressed out, hopeless population that is given absolutely nothing to work for, nothing to live for. They can't even put food on the table. They can't even afford a small studio apartment in a lot of these cities that they're working in. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it's just getting worse every year. And every politician, they always say they will fix it, but they never do. The numbers keep rising. The inflation keeps rising. Nobody wants to be the one to make the big decision to back the currency, because we all know what will happen to them if they do, which I obviously won't get into this on this video. So it also says U.S. sets congressional workers minimum annual salary at $45,000. So of course they give themselves raises. They set a minimum wage for themselves, but for the average person, we don't get anything. The minimum wage is still $7 an hour. Who can work for $7 an hour? Is your time only worth $7 an hour? You can do a lot more than $7 worth of work in an hour, unless you're like No, I don't even even the most useless worker, his time and energy is worth way more than $7 an hour. It's exploitation. We are being exploited to the max, and it's tragic. It's tragic. A lot of people work their entire lives and still are in the rat race, still are just a renter, if even, still are just renting, trying to scrape by, don't have any money for retirement. People are looking towards their social security and realizing due to inflation it's not enough. It gets devalued. All that money you paid into social security, it's not adding up to enough for retirement. People are like, I'm seeing people like 80 years old working at like dollar stores and stuff trying to pay rents. That's insane. You cannot have a functioning society like that and expect things to go smooth, because it won't. It will eventually collapse. And what we are seeing is a Roman style civilization collapse, a textbook style collapse of civilization. And it's sad. It's really sad, because people had hope in this country. People wanted to do the right thing. America was the only country ever made based on pure freedom of speech, pure rights to defend yourself, rights to speak freely, rights of movement, and every single one of those rights have just been defiled. I mean, the Constitution, it might as well be toilet paper. Might as well be toilet paper, because nobody follows that. That's old school, man. Everything's about safety and security and making people feel comfortable. Your words are not as important as my right to feel safe. If you even remotely make me feel uncomfortable, then you will be put in a cage for the rest of your life, or you will be censored at minimum. And now let's look at the minimum wage in America. As I've already said, $7.25 per hour. So an hour of your life, you can get a lot done in an hour. You could have sex 10 times, 20 times in an hour. Now that's worth a lot more than $7. Don't you agree? So why are these companies paying you $7 an hour? And the minimum wage, adjusted for inflation, the set minimum wage, actual minimum wage set in the 1960s, would be $30 an hour today. The equivalent, adjusted for inflation. If you were to take the minimum wage in the 1960s and translate it into today's time, it will be $30 an hour. Now let that sink in. Now we're talking about skilled people who went to school. They're not even making like $15, $16 an hour, which is supposedly, they're saying $15 is livable, but really with rent prices and constant inflation, you would have to need a constant increase over time. So it's really just a joke. I don't get it. Yeah, and it says real wages fall by 3% this year as inflation surges. So you think, okay, I'm getting a 25-cent raise, I'm making more, and it says in all the statistics that people are getting more money and actually getting raises this year more than they did last year, but they're actually losing money, losing buying power due to inflation. So they're even more a slave than they were last year. And people are saying that, oh man, I feel so good, I got a 10-cent raise, man, my boss really cares. I'm like, really? It's just a con game. I don't even know if I'll even be in America. I might consider immigrating, but really, I mean, despite this country's faults and despite this country's politics or whatever, this is my own. This is where I was raised. This is where I've always dreamed of being and dreamed of building my life. But people just don't want to wake up. They are so afraid that they lash out and do childish things instead of actually using their heads and, joining the discussion, coming up with logical arguments, waking people up. They don't do that. They don't do that because they're just in a little twilight zone or whatever. They're operating on pure instinct and what they've been told. They can't ever think outside of what they've been told, and that's the saddest part of all this, isn't it? Because things are going to keep going this way, and the cycle will keep repeating unless somebody breaks the cycle. And every 100 years there's always some person that comes about and tries to break the cycle. And every 1,000 years people will actually listen to them. Usually somebody who comes up with a different idea or way of thinking. They're usually just destroyed or killed or put down by mobs. That's how it goes. This is like, if we don't start becoming individuals fast and break out of this matrix, I don't think anything will change. I don't think people will actually find a meaningful solution. I mean, people are talking about it, people are complaining about it, people are just stressing to the max over it. Wages, prices, inflation, and nobody's coming up with solutions. I haven't heard a single solution. I haven't heard a single so-called leader come up with a solution, come up with a way to back our currency with something. They haven't. It's a circus. It's literally entertainment. There's no difference between watching a freaking sitcom and watching, what is it called? C-SPAN. There's no difference. It's the same thing. It's just entertainment for the masses in order to distract you from the fact that you are indeed a slave. That is all I have to say. I know my channel isn't really supposed to be political because YouTube doesn't like that, but I just had to say it. I just had to say it because it's messed up how people are literally living in their car. People are literally homeless. There's entire tent cities in every single major city in this country, and nobody says anything. Not the way I'm saying it, with actual passion, not in some scripted video, okay, that's just walking on eggshells. No. Say it with your chest. Say it like you believe it. Okay? It's just gotten to the point where you're either choosing to be a slave, or you're just going to break out of the matrix and actually start, coming up with valid solutions. Are you just going to complain about stuff, or are you going to actually come up with solutions? Back our currency. Set a higher minimum wage. If companies won't do it on their own, you have to set it. You should not be exploiting people. Okay, and a lot of people say, oh, just find another job. Well, like 90% of jobs pay less than $15 an hour, less than $20 an hour. Meanwhile, the CEO gets paid $100 million an hour. So it's just like people's quality of life. Sometimes you have to force these companies to pay more. They're not going to do it on their own. A lot of people are going to debate me on that. Fine, that's your opinion. But that's just how I feel. Debate me in the comment section. I don't care. But just come up with solutions.